This time we are at the 24th annual Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair, but with a little bit of a difference. We are toy hunting on a budget. With just £50, I still managed to find a holy grail toy I've been after since the 80s. This is retro toy hunting on a budget.
Get pick up! Building the game Rush tricks!
Hello again folks, welcome back to a very special episode. As not only are we live game hunting this episode, we're also live toy hunting at the 24th annual Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair, but with a little bit of a twist, because today we are working with a budget of just £50 and seeing what awesome toys and also video games we can add to my incredible collection. This modern and retro toy fair comes to Norwich around every 3 months and is always worth a visit, not just for toy collectors but also for video game collectors, because there's a lot of modern and retro video games on offer as well, but I'm mainly looking for toys. But here is the thing, it can be an expensive hobby, both video game and toy collecting. So with today's £50 budget, we're going to see how much awesome stuff we can add to the collection on a budget. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's hit the toy fair. Here we go then, the 24th Retro and Modern Toy Fair here in the fine city of Norwich, and I would normally say bright and early in the morning, but it's actually midday. And here is the thing, this toy fair starts at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and normally it's absolutely rammed at the start, but this is a refreshing change to go a little bit later and it to be so much quieter and so much easier to browse. To be honest, I don't think I'd go back to going here really early. I actually prefer coming a little bit later in the day and having a more relaxed look around, and straight away jumping in, here we have some awesome toys, some of these awesome Resident Evil figures. Now, I actually really kicked myself because I had some of these back in the day and I did sell them for about £10 or £15 each, and now they're about £40 to £50 each. But hindsight is just that. It's really hard to know what toys are going to get expensive in the future and which ones to invest in. And here is the thing, of course today we are on a strict budget of £50 because when you come to these toy markets and toy fairs, there's just so much stuff and you could spend so much money because it's not even just toys. We also have video games. And of course, if you've watched the channel for a while, you will know I'm going for the complete PAL PlayStation 1 collection in the PlayStation Platinum Project. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could find I needed here for the Platinum Project, but there was some really good video games. And I think a lot of people don't realise this about these toy fairs. There are also normally a lot of video games and decent video games. Like, look at the condition of this copy of Mickey Mania for the SNES. That was in absolutely amazing condition and at a pretty decent price, as were most of the video games on this stall. But remember, we are on a budget today of just £50. Speaking of video games, check this out. An absolutely minty copy of Klonoa for the PlayStation 1. And if you know anything about video games, you'll know this is a heavy hitter. And what makes me laugh is the price stick on here. Pre-owned for $14.99. Just imagine getting a copy of this for $14.99, complete in a box with the demo. Let's find out. Dare I ask how much you got on your Klonoa?
Well, because of you, I'll do it a bit cheaper. I'll do you a better offer than whatever you... What are you thinking?
So I was offered the price of £85 for Klonoa, which is an absolute bargain, but here is the thing, we are on a budget today, just £50, and unfortunately that would be properly over budget. And here's the thing, with Klonoa, with most video games I collect, it's because they hold nostalgia for me. A game I played back in the day, and unfortunately I never played Klonoa back in the day, and honestly to this point I still haven't played it. Stepping away from video games for a moment, we're back on the retro toy hunt, and one of the best ways to get a real bargain at these toy markets is to dig into these massive boxes of loose figures. Here you can see we have a TMNT figure, which at the time I thought was a NECA figure and was just £8, and I actually managed to argue this one down to £5, which at the end of the day you've got to have a haggle because we are on a budget and every pound counts. So if I pick up this Turtles figure, that will be a £5 spend, leaving us with £45 left to go. And here is the thing as well, I haven't been round the entire toy market yet, so I have to kind of pick and choose my battles, decide what to pick up, because when that £50 is gone, it's gone. The same store had even more loose figures, this time on the table. As you can see here, we have some Terminator figures, so many awesome Gears of War figures, and one of my favourite retro toy lines, the Alien toy line. Like, these are figures that are really cheap to collect for. I don't know why more people don't collect these, because I think they are super duper cool, but they're a really good one to pick up cheap at toy markets. Like I said earlier in the video, even if you are not a toy collector but a video game collector, it's definitely worth going to these toy markets, because more often than not there will be a lot of video games here. So you can see there's absolutely massive box of Switch games here, including some real nice steelbooks. I think most of those though I did already have in the collection, and here we have an absolutely amazing collection of GameCube games, and some of these games I had never seen before. Like this Mega Man Network Transmission, I have never seen this game for the GameCube. Now, what was quite interesting here, the person who was running this stall also told me they're going to be at the next Norwich gaming market at the UEA at the end of August, and this was just a small amount of what they'll be taking. And if this is just a taste of the stuff they'll be taking to that gaming market, then I'm definitely excited for that one. So stay tuned, because of course I'll be heading there at the end of August. But for now, they had an absolutely phenomenal array of GameCube games here, and just a little bit of everything. Like under the table here, they had some cheap bangers. Like you can pick up some really cheap Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games, not just at gaming and toy markets, but just in general now, just because I think a lot of people are making the move onto the next gen up. A lot of these games get really cheap, but one advantage of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X is the fact they still have backwards compatibility, but unfortunately not as far back as the PlayStation 1. So another game store here, we have some really good PlayStation 1 games, a little selection of PlayStation 3 games. Unfortunately, nothing really here that kind of grabbed my fancy, but this is the thing. At the end of the day, this is a toy market, so seeing any video games is a little bit of a bonus. If you've watched my recent CEX Steelbook hunt, you'll know I'm looking for Steelbooks, but I did pass on that one. Moving back from video games to toys, here we had a really large selection of carded toys. Now, you are obviously going to pay a little bit more for carded toys, but in a way I prefer these, especially when they're kind of packaged really cool, like these old WWE figures. I just like a good packaged retro toy. Sometimes the packaging can be a little bit boring, but one way you can of course save money if you're looking for toys on a budget is to buy them loose. And this is a really cool way of selling like loose old retro toys, is bagging them up like this, so then you can see if they come with their accessories. Now, there's some really cool ones in here, some really good old school TMNT figures, as well as some other cool figures lines, and definitely this is always a cheap way to pick up these retro toys, buying them loose. But let me know in the comments down below if you prefer to buy loose or boxed retro toys. Let me know down below. Back to video games again, and here is something you do not see every day: long box PlayStation 1 games. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think these long boxes were ever released outside the NTSC region. Not the most exciting game of all time, but to be honest, even seeing these cardboard long box PlayStation 1 games in the wild in the UK is really cool. Really nice Master System game here, and some really nice bits in general on this stall. Was tempted to pick this up, but did pass. Here is a really good way to score a bit of a bargain at the toy market. 3 for £10 on loose toys. There was a really good selection here, so you can see like some early 2000s TMNT figures, and mainly a lot of wrestling figures. And I keep getting tempted to get on the WWE figure collecting train. Now, at the moment, the only wrestling figures that I collect are the AEW wrestling figure lines, and I only collect these complete in the box. And I'm really tempted to pick up some of these kind of loose WWE figures, because I like the way you can kind of pose these and have them on the shelves. And I think especially when you get like kind of the same figure from various years, it can look really, really cool. Obviously, I do collect a lot of loose toys, and I kind of have a shelf in my games room which doesn't really have a theme, but I would like to kind of do a strict WWE shelf. So it's something I'm really thinking about, and this could be a really good way to pick up some of these wrestlers. I'll always have a soft spot for the kind of old school 80s WWF figures, but they're getting more expensive to collect, and I do like to collect figures a little bit more on a budget. So 3 for £10 was a really good, tempting way to jump back into collecting wrestling figures. But with the budget today, I did pass, but I must admit I was very, very tempted for 3 for £10 to pick up 3 of our tribal chief. Now, I would not consider myself an absolute expert when it comes to retro toys, but I feel like I have a general knowledge, and here is something I've never seen before: the Disney's Jim Henson's Dinosaurs toy line. Like, when it comes to collecting dinosaur toys, I'm all about Jurassic Park. My wife is a massive fan of Disney's dinosaurs, so I did manage to haggle that figure down for £5 of our budget. One of my favourite toys to collect is any video game crossover figures, and I've never seen these Evolve figures before, but I did pass on these because it's, to be honest, it's a game I haven't really played. I don't have a great knowledge of it, and these figures didn't exactly jump out to me, so I did pass on these. Now, this was definitely one of the best stalls of the entire day, but they did have a slightly higher end kind of toys, but there was some really good loose stuff here as well. But remember, we are now down to £40 of our budget, so we have to be really careful with that budget. So loose figures can be a good option. I was quite tempted by this turtle bike, but I'm just looking for that one key item. I know there's going to be something I see that I definitely want, that I can't resist. Now, this is an item I've been looking for a long while. One of my favourite toy lines is TMNT NECA figures, and this is a really rare figure. I think this was only available from loot boxes or something else, but it does hold a very high price tag. They were asking £80 for this, which is about right, but it's a very expensive toy. Like I said earlier, I knew when I saw what I needed to pick up, I would know. And here it is.
The crossover no one knew they needed.
That's right, Dan. The crossover no one knew they needed. The WWE Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover. And again, I managed to haggle this down to £10. Now, this is the kind of deal I can get behind. 3 TMNT figures for a tenner. But the only problem was, these were some of the newer figures, which I'm not really a massive fan of. Like, for me, it's all about the 80s looking turtles. Some of the movies ones, but some of the newer series I'm not overtly interested in. I just don't like the style. For me, it'll always be about that OG 80s style. So, unfortunately, I did pass on these. Don't get me wrong, there is some exceptions to the rule, but mainly, I'm an 80s guy. For me, this would be one of my favourite ways to grab a bargain at the toy market. These bagged loose figures. There were some really cool Marvel ones in here. And I've not really got any Marvel figures just because there's obviously millions in the entire world. I've got a small selection of Star Wars figures, but I mainly tried to stick to the Star Wars retro collection. There was some really cool stuff in here, but with £30 remaining of our budget, and to be honest, space in the games room at a premium, I did pass on all of these, even though there was some pretty good wrestling figures, including this one, which is meant to be The Rock. But let me know in the comments down below if you agree. I think this looks a lot more like Vin Diesel. For me, I think this was definitely a Fast and Furious action figure. We were down to £30 of our toy hunting budget, and to be honest, this was tempting for 20 quid. I absolutely loved these faceplates for the Xbox 360, and this Transformers one was super cool, but we're on a budget and we're still looking for that big item to take home. Some more video games here, and I've said it before, if I can get Dreamcast games in decent condition for cheap in this day and age, I'm going to pick them up. Again, this was tempting. Halo Wars Collector's Edition for £10, but that budget is getting smaller and you never know what's going to turn up. By this point, we are coming near the end of the toy market. A lot of stuff is sold, but you can probably still grab a bit of a bargain because the later it gets in the toy market, the more likely people are to make a deal. So let's hope for a good find. It was at this point in the toy fair that I came across not one, but two of a toy I've been looking for since the 80s. This was the toy I always wanted when I was growing up, but I don't know, I just never got it. It was an expensive toy back then. It's still a fairly expensive toy now, and I had two options. Remember, today we are hunting on a budget. I had £30 remaining. I had option A, an incomplete, slightly damaged, well played with version of this toy for just £15, or a complete version of this toy. Every accessory, every piece in amazing condition, still loose but fully complete, but for £75. Now, unfortunately, because today we are on a budget, I had to go for the £15 option. And you'll have to stick around until the end of this video to see what toy this was, because this was also the point that I forgot to hit record. So you'll just have to trust me that I picked up this toy and stick around to the end of the video to see what toy I have wanted since the 80s. So I had managed to pick up a toy which I had wanted since the 80s for just £15, which meant we had £15 worth of budget left, so let's make the most of it. I don't know what it is about this Crash Bandicoot plushie. I don't normally pick these plushies up, but I'm going to try and make a bit of a deal here. There were some really good loose Game Boy games here, and we've got £15 left to play with, so let's see what we can do. I think the Crash Bandicoot was £7 or £8, and a lot of these games were like between the £5 or £6. So let's try and make ourselves a little bit of a bundle and see how far we can stretch that last £15 of today's gaming budget. Now, I did settle on one game here for the Game Boy, which, to be honest, once again, is for my wife. She is a massive fan of the Simpsons Game Boy games, and this is one I don't see very often. So that was the 24th annual Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair. We had gone in with a budget of £50 and I'd actually come away with £5, but more importantly, some awesome pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room from the 24th Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair, and you know what? I actually really enjoyed today for one reason. That's because I was hunting on a budget. Sometimes it just makes it more fun because you have to really, really want something and you have to make some difficult decisions, and it just makes things a little bit more interesting. And I still managed to come away with some incredible bits. Spending just £45 of that £50 budget means I have £5 left to spend on whatever I want, but I also managed to get some amazing pickups. Here we have our first pickup. It was this £5 Michelangelo figure. Now, at first when I saw this in the plastic, I thought this was one of the TMNT NECA figures. This is actually one of the more modern TMNT Playmates figures, which, while not quite as good as their NECA counterparts, these are still really, really good, really poseable. They have a lot of joints now. They also have their weapons complete with them, and this is a really, really nice figure, especially for just £5. Do you remember a TV series from the 90s from Disney called Jim Henson's Dinosaurs? Yes, I hope you do. If not, check it out. It is on Disney+. And I cannot believe there was a toy line for this series. It's not the most exciting toy of all time. It's essentially a small statue, but I have never seen any toys from this absolutely iconic series from the 90s. And this was down for £7. I managed to make a deal at £5, and I had to pick this one up. Sometimes when you're out hunting, there is just an item you have to have regardless of the price, and thankfully this was only £15, so I did manage to haggle down to £10. It's a crossover we never knew we needed, the WWE TMNT Ninja Superstars. So this is of course Raphael as Sting, and ironically I actually had this figure loose, but with the accessories and complete in the box, this is a thing of absolute beauty. But unfortunately, it is now, of course, the start of something, because there is 4 of these, and as both a WWE and TMNT fan, I have to complete the full set. When hunting on a budget, one of the best ways to make a deal is bundling items together, and that's exactly what I did with these next 2 items. So first off, we have this Crash Bandicoot plushie, which is it's just absolutely incredible. I just love this so much. It just looks so cool, and at £5, this is an absolute bargain. It is brand new, and it's just an iconic look, really, isn't it? And I managed to bundle it together with a original Game Boy game. We have Bart Simpson Escape from Camp Deadly. So this was down for £7, so £12 altogether. I managed to make a deal for both of these items for just £10. And even better, this game would have cost me £10 in CX, so essentially I got Crash Bandicoot for free. Here we go then, we are down to our final pickup from the 24th Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair, and this is a toy I have wanted since the 80s. Since I first started watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 80s, I have of course wanted the absolute iconic Turtle Van. And I finally own one. Yes, this has been well played with. Yes, this is missing so many of the accessories, but to finally own this, and to be honest, to own one that's been well played with, is a little bit more fun than kind of buying a collector's piece. This toy holds some history. Someone absolutely loved this, and as a display piece, I still think it's in fairly good condition. Yes, it is missing lots and lots of pieces. Yes, it is far from mint, but this kind of means more to me than that. This is a well-played, well-loved toy, and something I have wanted since the 80s. And I think when you put this together with a few Turtles figures, this is going to look absolutely incredible on the shelf. And even better, I paid just £15, keeping us within our budget today of £50 to Retro Toy Hunt. This is what I mean though, even though this toy is missing so many accessories, you simply combine it with one TMNT figure and all of a sudden it just looks so cool. And it just brings back so many memories of playing with my TMT figures as a boy, and at the end of the day, that's what really counts. I am so happy to finally own the toy that I wanted from my youth. I have wanted that toy in my collection since the 80s, and it just makes me so happy to finally have it. But I want to hear from you folks watching. Let me know in the comments down below, what was the one toy that you wanted back from your childhood that you never owned? And more importantly, let me know, do you now own that toy? There we have it then folks, that was retro toy hunting on a budget at the 24th annual Norwich Modern and Retro Toy Fair. But if you liked what you see, fear not, the Norwich Retro and Modern Toy Fair will be back for a 25th edition on the 5th of November. So if you're into your retro and modern toy collecting, remember the 5th of November. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you all soon.